Welcome, Interisti, to episode 127 of the Interviews podcast. I am one half of your co-hosting duo, Gianmarco Paterno. Unfortunately, Alessandro can't be with us today. If you guys recall, he had a bit of a family incident a couple weeks ago now. And now, unfortunately, that his fiance's grandmother has now passed. So I know how close I am with my nonna. I know how I would be if I was in the same situation. So I can't imagine what his fiance is going through. And obviously, I want to send our deepest condolences to him and his fiance during this time. If you happen to shoot him a DM, maybe not tweet it, but maybe just send him a DM, let him know how you're feeling or that he's in your thoughts, whatever it may be, if you feel led to. Obviously, there's no requirement, but just wanted to start it with that, even though, today wasn't a good game for us. I do still think there are things bigger than Calcio when you really think about it. So we are joined here, though, today by none other than the man who once invented the valve for the artificial heart, the man who might have cured dog cancer, not humans, but he did do it for the canines, and a man who was called by John Travolta his inspiration on the dance floor. So we are thankful to have Nima Tovali Rutsari with us today.
And people wonder why I say that you should be doing comedy for real.
Listen, I'm SNL. You just celebrated your 50th anniversary, and I still haven't gotten a phone call. So there's that. But thank you, Nima, for hopping on short notice. Obviously, we always appreciate you being able to do this, and obviously, we appreciate your insight, even if I do have to criticize it, once a week. So, seriously. You are an incredible human, an incredible journalist, and obviously always welcome to be a part of this. So we appreciate it.
Appreciate it for all the kind words and all the support through the years from yourself and everyone listening, and Alessandro, of course. This was not fun. This was not fun at all. This was, again, a continuation of something that I spoke out about, that has been annoying me for most of this season, and I feel that this was again this thing. The Inter don't have the consistency this season. They just don't in the league. It's that simple. I think after match day 25, when you're halfway through February, and you've played Milan and Juve 4 times in the league, drawn twice, lost 2. You've played Napoli in the league, you've drawn. In most of those draws, you had more than enough, or in every single one of those draws, you had the chance to win, and you failed to win every single one. On the weekend, where Napoli stumbled against Lazio, you had the chance to send a message and overtake them. Yes, I know that Inter have only ever beaten Juve at the Allianz Stadium twice before. We are aware of that. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about what Marotta and Lautaro themselves said before the game. The performance is what matters today, more than anything else. Well, what did we see? We saw a first half where Inter were good in terms of aggression, in terms of balance. They pressed really well. They had Juve's number. But the individual mistakes by key players in key moments, and the inability to and the mistakes that they're making is not like, we're not talking trying difficult things and failing. I'm talking being unattacked as the captain of Inter 3 times, not only not hitting the target once, but hitting your foot once when in a good position. And I'm not just talking about Lautaro, because I think this goes from Bastoni, who hasn't delivered a decent cross in 3 months, to Barella, who today was not his usual self, to, I think Acerbi is the only one I think that looked like himself today. The rest of them, I just don't know what to say on an individual level. And this is, again, they're not up to speed. And They're not the same team they were a year ago, whether it's mental fatigue or physical fatigue or all of the above. That's for the post-season analysis to decide, right? But the fact of the matter is, we're now match day 25. Inter are in a situation, 3 losses, 2 in the last 3-4 Serie A games, and
last 3 Serie A games.
Yeah, 2 in the last 3 Serie A games. One where they were hammered against Fiorentina, and a game where again they couldn't follow up a good. They had a decent first half, but they couldn't get it on target, and then they turn up in the second half, and they were just not there. They just weren't there for the entire second half, and were unable. It was, as we both of us tweeted out, I think most of us did. We're just waiting for Juve to score the goal, and when you're in that situation, Gianni, that's not a Scudetto winning side. I'm sorry, it's just not.
It's hard for me to say anything against what you just said. I think for most of the season I've been pretty optimistic. I've thought that we would still be serious title contenders. I didn't think that Napoli would run away with it. I didn't think it was theirs to win. I guess I was still banking on the quality that we saw last season with the squad to continue to be the case this year. And obviously, given the performances the last 2 out of the last 3 Serie A games, it just hasn't been the case, unfortunately. The first half, again, just like many matches this season, I thought we should have been up 2-0. I thought that we dominated them. I thought that right side, we were skinning Savona all half long. Juventini were begging for Thiago Motta to sub him off, and I was saying, please leave him on. That right side would have been all ours. I don't understand how a player of the level of quality that Lautaro is unable to get one of those opportunities on goal. I'm not expecting you to get all 3. No one's perfect. But my goodness, not a single one on goal. It's frustrating. The unfortunate slip by Barella right outside the 18 that somehow got to Taremi might have been our best, if not only, opportunity that was actually on goal in the first half. And it was from a slip. It wasn't, Barella wanted to shoot that himself. And we were just fortunate that Taremi was able to adjust and try something truly magnificent. Unfortunately, it was right at Di Gregorio, but a very frustrating first half. And most Interisti that I saw were saying, oh, great, here we go again. Not finishing, and it's going to come back to bite us in the second half, which is inevitably what happened. I know you said that you thought Acerbi was the only one who played. I would say that Pavard as well, personally. I don't think Pavard had a bad game.
No.
I thought he was his usual solid self at the back. And just maybe not have, good balls on the end going forward. I think he had some opportunities in the first half where he could have had some crosses and decided to play it back for whatever reason instead of crossing it in himself. But that's neither here nor there. We once again lose points to a direct rival. And the disappointing thing is, in years past when Inter was the inferior team, we were the ones just actually dropping the points. We were losing to Juve, whether it's at the Allianz, whether it was at the the San Siro, we were the ones dropping the points, and it was expected. Now, where Juve is probably, I don't know, this may be the worst team I've seen in the last 5-6 years, to be quite honest, from Juve. Maybe you can make an argument for the year Pirlo was in charge that was worse, but I don't think talent-wise, even performance-wise, I just think that Inter team was special. That was the year, obviously, we won the Scudetto, so it is what it is. But to then, like you said, we drop points at home, up 4-2 in that match, and we allow Juve to steal that 2 points from us there. And then they really had, 2 opportunities on goal. Sommer made a fantastic save, or a double save, really, in the first half that prevented them from taking the lead. And then, of course, the unfortunate bouncing and really, superior display by Colomboani there to be able to rid himself free of Hakan and dance around our defense and find, Conceição there to take the lead and inevitably be the winning goal. But it's very disappointing to say the least. I wanted to turn the game off maybe around the 70th minute. To be honest, I was like, this is not going to be a good ending. And the only reason I kept watching it was to do this with you. Otherwise, I would have just been flying blind, really. But yeah, I guess the question that I would want to ask you, and I'm sure other people would too, who do you blame for this performance and this outcome?
I don't think we can blame one person. I think this is, if you're going to ask me my analysis of this as to why Inter aren't winning the Scudetto, if you want that post-season analysis now, because I firmly don't believe that Inter are winning the Scudetto, and I've said it for a month and a half now. I didn't say anything until after the Sparta Prague game, which really put me over the edge, and then the derby really just cemented it for me. I think I'm not, look, again, you're asking my analysis, not my opinion. That just to make that clear, my opinion is different from my analysis. What I'm looking at when I'm analyzing this, I'm beginning to think, Gianni, and I never thought I'd say these words when the season started, but I'm beginning to think that maybe this is the beginning of the end of the Inzaghi era at Inter. It's starting to look a bit stale. It's starting to look a bit found out, and the players aren't reacting. And tonight you saw him make 3 subs proactively, and it looked good for about a couple of minutes, but then they just fell apart. I don't think it's necessarily that. I just think football is organic, and after 4 years, it's only normal that it's time to freshen things up. Like, it's not a criticism of Inzaghi or anything crazy like that. I think he's done an excellent job. I think he's done a fabulous job, given if you take everything into consideration.
For sure. But
the fact of the matter is that 2 Scudetti out of 4, when the competition was Pioli's Milan, Conte's Napoli. I don't count Spalletti's Napoli to that, because I think they were one of the best teams in Europe that season, as we saw against Liverpool and others. Mm-hmm. That's just not good enough. And I think that when you hit this instance, it's not just the manager, but I think the project needs an injection of life from the squad to maybe the manager to maybe just all round, just as they've done off the pitch with getting rid of people they wanted to get rid of after Suning to breathe new life into it. I think you have to do that into the playing side of things as well. Whether or not you continue with Inzaghi, whether or not it's time to part ways with Inzaghi, that's obviously their call. But I wonder if in their post-season analysis, they don't look at this as a whole and go, why don't, cut our losses and move on, amicably right now? Because they're not going to be able to make the investments needed to continue playing Inzaghi's football. I just don't see that happening. The Oak Tree are not going to come with a wallet the size of, and start spending. They're just not going to do that. And that means that you're going to have someone who is more pragmatic. You're going to have someone who can deliver on a more pragmatic budget and just get results without dominating teams like this in all competitions. And I don't think Simone Inzaghi can continue doing that at Inter. It doesn't feel like that right now. Obviously, if they look at it differently and they say, okay, well, if we get rid of Fratesi, we do our math, and Marotta, who's a master at this, can do the math and get everything to work out and save wages and still manage to give Inzaghi a squad that can play Inzaghi football. Great, continue. I think Inzaghi's great, and I think everyone agrees with that. We're playing some of the best football, if not the best football ever Inter has played in terms of attacking football, right? And modern football. But I think as a whole, I think this season has shown that it's this project is a little bit stale, and it's again the season after a Scudetto when you have the chance to push forward, you take a sideways step, and when you take a sideways step, you give your opposition a chance to catch up with you, and that's exactly what happened after Conte. Obviously, that was different because that was the post-pandemic world, but the same thing happened last summer. They didn't invest properly. They didn't breathe life into this squad the way they should have. And with 5 competitions and an 11-month-long season, and a team that looks mentally and physically cooked, and has looked mentally and physically cooked for large parts of the season, I just don't. I think this has been a long time coming. I think I said on our pod, on the Italian Football Podcast, that there's an iceberg coming, and the name of that iceberg is Milan, Fiorentina, and Juve. Well, 1 win, 2 losses, 1 draw. I'd say the Titanic is sinking. I'd say the iceberg hit big, and this was a long time coming, and it gives me no pleasure in saying that at all. So that's like my overall take on it. But if I zoom in on Inter this season, look, we're only 2 points behind Napoli. There's no the math is math. We're 2 points behind Napoli. We have Genoa. We have a week's rest until Genoa next week. Then you have Lazio at home, and then you have Napoli. There is more than ample time to repair this. There's no doubt about that. But with the Champions League coming up, and with the Champions League being either Milan or Juve, I wonder if this team has enough gas in the tank to compete on all fronts, and it doesn't end up being a situation where you end up with 0 titles. Honest to God. And I think that would be a disaster. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I mean, it completely makes sense. I agree to an extent. My analysis, I did say it, I think, last week, or maybe it might have been after the 3-0 loss to Fiorentina, that I thought, hey, maybe the message from Inzaghi is becoming a little stale. And maybe it's just not having the same effect on the players, and they just don't feel the same level of motivation that they felt even last season. So while I agree with that, I don't know if replacing Inzaghi would be the way to go, because then it's like, where do you go? Even if they part ways amicably, they're not going to pay more. Like, they would have to pay more for Allegri, and I don't think with Oak Tree they're gonna do that. They're not gonna increase the wages for a manager in that sense. So then I would have no idea where they would go. Like, I mean, this is just all hypothetical, of course, but like, who's out there? Italiano, Palladino. I don't see either of those guys coming. And the only guy that I would have liked to maybe succeed is at Milan now, who was hired mid-season. So it's like,
all right, Sergio.
Yeah, so it's like, I just don't. I don't think it would come. The change would come by way of replacing your manager or changing your manager. I think that now is it time to maybe do a squad revolution, or is that going to be too much to put, especially given the short training that we would have and the short turnaround for the following season, given that we have to compete in the Club World Cup, and would that be asking too much of Inzaghi again? So it's tough. It's tough to say for sure. Obviously, I'm very close or tied to a lot of these players in a personal level, but that doesn't mean that they are above being replaced, to be quite honest. As much as I love Barella, Bastoni, Dimarco, even Lautaro, I mean, even though Barella's my favorite, but like, would it be worth it to sacrifice 1 or 2 to bring in 5 or 6 pieces? I don't know, and that's something that maybe, we can discuss further on a postseason episode or something, whatever. But yeah, it's very difficult, and who knows? I mean, maybe we can beat Genoa convincingly, maybe cruise by Lazio in the Coppa Italia. I don't even care if we win or lose that one, to be honest. Although I would like to see more Josep Martinez, because lately some of the goals that Sommer has been giving up have been a little frustrating. This one, if you look at it, I don't know how Pavard doesn't get any part of his body onto the ball first. But it was a very weak effort on the dive, and normally I'm not one to criticize Sommer, but I was a little disappointed with that effort. And yeah, it's just frustrating to see, and we want to see what we have with Josep Martinez. So
look, I think you're right. I think that's also part of it. Like, you have quite a bit of rebuilding to do. You have a rather aging squad. You have two strikers, Arnautovic and Correa, although now I'm reading that Inter have an option to extend Arnautovic's contract by a year, and they haven't made a final decision if they're going to do that, which is like makes me want to just, I don't know what to say.
Oh boy.
Yeah, that pretty much sums it up. But which to me is like, again, putting Snoopy band-aids on gunshot wounds. But
I like that.
it's
That was good.
but it is what it is. But that's the thing. They need to do something with Allegri. He's not going to make more than Inzaghi. There's no way. He's not. His stock isn't as high as it was before after Juve. Just like with Conte had to take a pay cut when he took Napoli. I think the reality of the matter is that no, the office he's gotten is Roma and stuff like that. He's not interested in that. So it's I do think that if he's out there, it's probably he's the one they look to. They have a good relationship, him and Marotta. Allegri is a company man, just like Inzaghi. He doesn't, he works with what he's got. I think in terms of this new Inter that they've built for a couple of seasons under Suning, since Suning took over, is he fits the mold in that. But I mean, that remains to be seen post-season, what they do. But I think what everyone would agree with is there needs to be a reshake of this project. They need to on the pitch. Whether Inzaghi's the right man to continue that, I don't know. Personally, I would love it if he stayed. But we also know what kind of players he needs to do that. Can they deliver on that? That's the question they need to ask themselves.
Yeah.
And also, they have to extend his contract because he's at the end of this summer, he's only got 1 year left. So, these are difficult questions that need to be answered. But again, if looking at the short term instead, like if we analyze the short term, I think it's not. I mean, of course, the math says we're 2 points behind Napoli. You got Genoa next week at home. They got Como away. That's not an easy game. Como away. Como are a pain in the butt. It's not absolutely impossible that Napoli
Nico
lose
Paz.
a point. Yeah, or even lose the game. It wouldn't surprise me one bit, right? But the fact of the matter, I don't think they'll lose, but I think they will. They it's not impossible they drop points in that game. But regardless, when you look at the schedule that Inter have got, and you look at the Coppa Italia, you got Champions League will not be easy. That round of 16 will not be easy unless they play Feyenoord or PSV, which I highly doubt that Feyenoord and PSV knock out Juve and Milan. But if they did, okay, that'll be an easier draw. But regardless, let's say it's Juve or Milan, which seems pretty likely. That's going to take a lot out of Inter. And then you've got Napoli, you've got Atalanta left, Rome. It doesn't. Inter just don't strike me as a team that wins the Scudetto this season, and they haven't all year. Then you have the Coppa Italia. If you beat Lazio, you got Milan to contend with, 2 Milan derbies. I mean, that's going to take also. Do you know what I mean? It's just, when I look at that, it's my opinion that I look at all of these things, and my take on that, and this is my opinion, I don't see Inter need to can't focus on more than 2 of these competitions. Mm-hmm. I wonder which one that is. I just don't think the league is the one. Yeah, sorry.
No, it's okay. Let me play devil's advocate then. How would you feel though if we beat Genoa and then we beat Napoli? Do you think that then maybe we can go on and win the title, or do you think it's regardless of what happens in those?
Look, I think you beat Genoa, you beat the key here for me is going into the Napoli game not chasing Conte. That's the key. That's the absolute key. You if you're even on the same points as Napoli, I'll take that. You don't even need to be ahead of Napoli. But even if they draw and Inter beat Genoa, they're on the same points. That's fantastic. But do not go into that game chasing him, because you've seen all of them, what they do against Inzaghi's. And Inzaghi believe this is how they play. They impose themselves on the teams. The problem is they can't kill off games. And then you have Napoli counterattacking you. And at the Maradona. And then they have a 4-point lead, a 3-point. Did you see what I'm saying?
Yep.
These are the things that... But of course, if Inter go on and beat Genoa and Napoli, although nothing tells me right now that Inter will beat Napoli, I think that draw is pretty much what we're kind of expecting. but nothing tells me that they're going to win that game. But if they go on and win those 2 games, yeah, of course. I mean, then you've beaten a direct rival for the first time this season. I mean, for the Scudetto, with all due respect to Atalanta, Milan and Juve and Napoli were always going to be the main contenders. Now, of course, in the league, they're not. But you know what I mean? Like, those are the main ones going into the season, and it would be a huge narrative shift. But honest to God, Gianni, is there anything that tells you that this team has enough juice in the tank to do that?
To beat Napoli?
To beat Genoa, Lazio, and Napoli, because that's what's going to take, right?
I mean, the Lazio game's the Coppa Italia, so I'm not worried about that one. Like, if we did lose that one, honestly, I'd be okay punting that, especially if it means you rest the players that are most important for the Napoli game. Like, I think you have to go with that one. Like, that's one where you start Zalewski, you start Zielinski, you start Carlos Agu, you start everybody. I don't care if you got to call up Primavera kids. I mean, that's one where I agree you just start all reserves. Like, you need everybody rested. You need everybody help. Like, what if you play that game, you start Thuram, and he picks up another knock, and now he can't play the Napoli game? You know, like that. Yeah. I think we have to be smart in that situation. But I think if we do go ahead and win the Genoa game, and then, you know, are well rested for the Napoli game, with the way Napoli's been playing their last 3 matches, I would feel pretty good going into that one. Now, I felt pretty good coming into this one today against Juve as well. So it really doesn't mean anything, my feelings. And I try not to be a homer every time. I do try to be a little bit more objective, but, you know, I thought, you know, Juve hasn't looked good. Juve hasn't looked convincing. Their fans have been disappointed with their season and the performances that they've seen. Now, granted, yes, Colomboani has been a revelation for them and really helped kind of steer the ship in the right direction, but I didn't really think we would drop points today. I thought we would be able to go in there, and given our recent run, that we would be motivated to get all 3 points, but once again, it wasn't the case. So, listen, I think we have to pick up and move on, which is frustrating because I feel like I've said that a lot lately.
Yeah, well, yeah, you have. You're like I've been listening to the pod, and you've basically been like, you know, to continue that Titanic analogy, you've been like the guys playing the music as the boat is sinking. And God bless you for that. But all jokes aside, look, I agree with everything you said. The fact of the matter is that Inzaghi doesn't. He's gonna rotate against Lazio, but you know as well as I do that you're gonna play. He's not gonna. He knows he has to come bring silver, and I would personally punt the Coppa too if it meant that you were turned rested and you could focus. But that would require Inter to show something that they haven't all season, and that is a kind of mental consistency and belief that I've just not seen in them this season. And I don't trust them. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't trust this Inter this season. And I think I'm not alone in that.
No, you're definitely not alone. I mean, I think, you know, we have a lot of the same friends who feel the same way. I tried to be more optimistic and think that things would change, but no, I think the sad reality is that this is not the Inter of last season, unfortunately, and they have not played to the best of their capabilities. I think the only game where they really played well and they still didn't win was the Man City game. I think that was their best performance all season, and they weren't able to get maximum points from that one, which, you know, again, same thing. Not being able to finish lets them down once again, and I don't know what it's going to take. I really don't know, and I don't know if, like you said, if it's going to be a manager that has to go to shake things up, if it's going to have to be a big player that's sacrificed. But given the state of this game and the performances, you know, I mean, it's I don't know where we go from here, unfortunately, and we'll see what happens.
No, you know, sorry.
No, I was only going to point out one positive that I thought was I thought, Zalewski's impact immediately once he stepped onto the pitch was noticeable. He was aggressive. He was direct with his dribbling and with everything. I don't know if you saw it. I thought when he got into the box where Lautaro played the ball to him, I thought he got pushed, and that's what kind of threw him off from firing that shot that I thought he was gonna take there when he cut in on his right. But that was the only thing that I could really complain about from his game, and I think had Lautaro been able to get on the end of one of his crosses, or Thuram, finish that headed effort, he would have had an assist, which I did tweet that once he came on. I was like, all right, Zalewski will have an assist in this game, and close but no cigar. So, but I do think that he's been a breath of fresh air in this squad, and I think that he's been trying to push them forward. I think he knows this opportunity that's in his lap, and I think he's trying to make the most of it. So I'm happy with that at least.
Oh, I agree 100%. I think Zalewski's the kind of player who will thrive under Inzaghi. I think Inzaghi can really, really improve him a lot. So I'm really happy with that signing. I think it's a player who it's an intelligent Marotta signing if Inzaghi stays and they continue. I think he'll be very serviceable, actually. So I don't have any problems with that. In fact, I think it's a smart signing. But it hinges on Inzaghi staying, and I agree with you. And also, he's young. He's not going to cost too much. They have a
7 million
option.
Yeah,
it's not much at all. 5, 6, 7, and then you have Buchanan. I think is a 10, 12. So that kind of pays for that and then some. So no, that's an intelligent signing. If Inzaghi continues, which we'll have to wait and see what happens. But it seems to me, based on what Marotta said, if you're asking my opinion now, based on what Marotta's been saying, based on what Inzaghi's been saying, it feels like he wants to continue for at least another season at Inzaghi. I feel that the way that he talks, the assertive nature that he talks, the way that he talks before games, during games, after games, the way that him and Marotta are on the same page, it feels like they're not happy about the way that this season is going, and you can already kind of tell that they want revenge. I'm not saying they're focused on the next season, but that's my opinion. I get the feeling that they're kind of thinking, okay, let's finish this the best we can, do our best to do in every competition, but we need to properly shake things up going into next season. And that's good. I think that's a good that's a good position if that continues. I mean, again, I love Inzaghi. You know that. Most people know. I absolutely love Simone Inzaghi. I think he's a fantastic coach. But my only thing is that this season is, I just hope it doesn't go so south. If that makes sense? I don't know if Inter can handle. I'd rather lose to Lazio than lose to Milan in the Coppa Italia semi-final. Let me put it that. I'm not sure this Inter can handle losing more to Milan do you know what I mean? Like losing more direct rivals, Juve, Milan. I don't think like the pressure cooker will be too much, and that's why if you're asking me who I'd rather play in the Champions League, I'd rather play Juve at this point than Milan in the Champions League. Even though we lost to Juve tonight, I feel that we have a better chance against them because Milan, the derby is the derby. It's a completely different energy.
So what makes you, I guess, feel more confident against Juve as opposed to Milan? Just curiosity, obviously.
Because it's in Europe, and Inter this season in Europe, they've never played Juve in Europe. I think Inter the fact that they feel that they are the big dogs in Europe. Juve is a completely new project. And also the fact that they start away and they end at home. I think that gives them an advantage. Just Inter have looked more assertive at every level, and I think the fact that the derby, everything flies out the window in the Milan derby because form doesn't matter. It's the psychology of it. And I look at these games, Supercoppa, 2-0 up, crash 2-3. I look at the 1-1 draw where you hit the bar and post 3-4 times. They've gotten under Inter's skin. And I don't feel that with the Juve loss today, they haven't gotten under Inter's skin. Inter are pissed. There's a different dynamic, and I think an Inter that's pissed going into a Juve game in Europe is one I prefer over an Inter that is annoyed going into Europe playing Milan, especially after having beaten Milan in the semi-final, and you know that Milan would love nothing more than to get one back over Inter again. Did you see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
If that makes
absolutely. No, it definitely makes
sense.
sense. I mean,
You know,
so
so it's not like I'm saying that you are weaker. No, I'm just the dynamic of it, and I think if you beat Lazio, which I kind of think they will, then you've already got 2 games more against Milan. 4 more Milan derbies this season.
jeez.
I
Yeah.
mean, really, Johnny, what are you trying to do to me here? Like,
No, I mean that. Yeah,
do you have
that's.
4 more derbies in the tank? Because I don't.
I don't think so. I don't think my brain could handle that. I might have a nervous breakdown if that were the
Yeah,
case. So, uh,
that's exactly my point. For our sakes, I hope we don't play Milan any more than twice in the Coppa. That's enough.
yeah, no, I would have to agree with you there. So, listen, hopefully we do just go out to Lazio and we can move on. One thing that I did see, somebody ask is if this team were to move forward for next season with the same people or the same management, I should say, intact, do you foresee, other than the obvious like the Fratesi and Aslanis, anybody truly potentially being sacrificed, or do you think that they're just going to try to do some plug and play and remain the same for the most part?
I think if they don't win the league, which I don't expect them to do, I think that most of them will want to stay. I have a question mark around Marcus Thuram. What does he want to do? Inter want to extend that contract, and they want to remove the clause, the release fee clause. Does he want that? That's a big question. That's a big if. And somewhere there is where I'm kind of at. I don't think Bastoni or Barella will leave Inter unless somebody comes with stupid money. But I don't think Inter will ever sell Bastoni and Barella. I think they'll basically say, look, we have 150 million offer from so and so. What do you want to do, Barella? I think that's the kind of thing they will do. But I don't see them selling them. But as for if somebody comes and activates the clause for Thuram, that's not an impossibility. If an Inter can't do anything, and Inter have to be prepared. And as I've said, for me, it's about Inter being prepared, and maybe what we said about freshening things up. And another aspect of that is, I think we all have to come to terms with one thing, Gianni. As many goals that Lautaro has scored, and as much as he does score, and he will score 20, 25 goals every year, right? He's not a killer in the box. He's not. He's never going to be that. You know what I mean when I say killer. He's not a fox in the box. He's not an assassin. He's not the guy who gets one chance, scores one. He needs 5 chances to score 2. That's just who he is. He's a fantastic footballer. There's no doubt about that. But I think we have to understand that he's not a prima punta like that. He's a 9.5, 10.5 kind of player. And that's great. He's a fantastic player. Maybe the solution is to accept that and go after the right now if Thuram is sacrificed, and change how you play. And one way to do that is to go after Matteo Retegui. Sell Thuram, bring in Retegui. That means you have to change how you play. Do you know what I mean?
Interesting.
Do you know what I mean? No, but you know what I mean? Like that would be one way of addressing and freshening things up. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, because Thuram,
of course.
Thuram, he likes to go out, likes to dribble, likes to pick up the ball. Retegui doesn't do that. Retegui links up, but he is a bomber. He's a giant in the box. He's great in the air. He's always been good in the air. He's a great finisher. But what he's done this season that has impressed me the most is the link up, the play with get back against the goal, the pressing. So he can do that. He makes you more centralized. And then you have to change how you play. And with Petar Sucic coming in, and if you get rid of Fratesi Aslani and you bring in someone like Ricci, well, then you already kind of changed how you're playing. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, that already makes the changes needed. And if you get rid of Arnautovic in Korea and you bring in someone like Jonathan David, well, that's an outstanding attacking force. No, but seriously, Jonathan David, if Taremi stays, Lautaro and Retegui. That's 4 different strikers to play 4 different ways of football, you know? And it's, if you need options, there you go. There. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, there you freshen it up. Then you change and update how you play. And also Zalewski, if he stays, okay, Dimarco, Zalewski, Bastoni, Carlos Augusto, you need to spend money on the defense because one of Acerbi and De Vrij has to go. You can't keep both of them. You got Bisek and Pavard, and you have Dumfries and Darmian. So you're going to go with that for another season. Great. But then do something. Do you see what I'm saying? You get rid of 5,
absolutely.
6 players, you bring 5. Like, that would already, just by bringing those characters in, you would balance the books, you would pay for them, and you would be forced to change how you play. And you would be much more central, because Inzaghi's teams will always create chances. Always. If you've got someone who's an assassin in the Serie A, scoring goals when there isn't even a chance, because Inter haven't really had that since Icardi, with all due respect. Oh, sorry, Lukaku. Lukaku was like that. But since Lukaku, we've not had that killer. And maybe that is the answer, because then you're forced to change how you play. Because, do you see what I'm saying? Like, that could be an option if you want to continue with Inzaghi, for example.
So let's say, okay, they sell Thuram, they sell Fratesi, they sell Aslani, and
Sucic is coming in, so we know that.
Yep. So aside from Sucic, and you said Retegi would be the guy you would bring in with the money you get from Thuram.
And a free transfer of Jonathan David. And I'd go for Ricci and Ricci. Don't ask me about who I want to bring in for the defense, because I think there is a horror show of quality defenders right now. Not a single one we've linked with excites
At
me.
least in Serie A.
Bukema, Biol.
Yeah,
exactly. Absolutely. 100%,
like,
as our friend Tony always says, please look outside the Serie A. There is a whole world outside of Italy, as Tony always says.
I mean, yeah, it's crazy. There is talent in France. There's talent in Spain. I don't know why we don't entertain that. I wouldn't know who else. I mean, there's some guys that interest me, but again, I think that you would have to then probably sacrifice Bisek to bring a player like that in. Potentially the ones that I'm thinking of in terms of center back. So, is it worth it? I don't know. Of course, if somebody wants to pay the release clause for Jan Bisek, that's totally different, but I doubt anybody will.
No.
So,
but that's how I'm looking at it. And also, you were talking about Josep Martinez. Given that he's very good with the ball at his feet, you know that, right? Mm-hmm. So maybe you move to what you did a little bit with Onana, but with the difference that you got Reti. Did you see what? There are so many tactical avenues you can pursue, but they need to make these decisions, and they need to make them not fast, because we're kind of in February, but they need to kind of pretty soon decide which road they're going to take. They need to first decide with Inzaghi, do we continue and extend with him, regardless of what happens? And once they do that, they need to put all the course of plan into action and quickly resolve it. But if they want to keep Thuram, and I don't know where that money's going to come from. Like, where are you going to... as my mom used to say when I was a kid, and I used to tell her to buy stuff. She used to tell me, I don't own a donkey that shits gold. Like, unless Inter own a donkey that shits gold, where's the money going to come from?
Would be nice, Yeah, I think the only way we get any money is
like
if
the most
Fratesi
apparent thing that you'll ever hear on this podcast.
For sure. Yeah, I think the only way we get any money is if Fratesi and Thuram are sold. I think that's the only way. And so we'll have to see. And the crazy thing is, with the Club World Cup, it's a shorter runway for getting players in and getting players out. And, where do you go with that? I don't know. That's as excited as being in the States. Yeah, no, it is. Man, what a depressing day.
No.
To have the
No, look, we lost to Juve. It's never nice to lose.
Come on.
I mean, look, no, let's not. Like, the thing that frustrates me the most is, I want to sit here and say, okay, it was a bad loss, but there's something telling me that. But that's what I'm. I look at this and I go, where's the energy going to come from? Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not, you can't just sit and pray, oh, please.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, that's the thing that I find so depressing and the most negative. But look, having said that, we have a week's rest to Genoa. It's a home. That's a good thing. It's a week, one more week for Hakan and Thuram and all these guys to kind of rest their energy levels before you play some really difficult games, because I think the international break is after the Atalanta game even. So,
oh, geez.
You know, yeah. So they're gonna have to rest they need their energy levels all saved up. So you know, it's, you know, one game at a time. First Genoa, then see where you are. And I'm with you. If Napoli drop points to Como and you beat Genoa and you're on equal points with Napoli going into that game, you have to punt the Coppa Italia. I mean, to me, it's madness to not do it. Rotate 11 players. Like, play the entire second string. I have no problem with that. And save your first string players for the Napoli game. You just have to. So we'll know in a week.
No,
we'll
without
know
question.
In a week where we are.
Okay, so one more week, and then we'll see what happens with us. Unfortunately, I've been again, I've been trying to be the optimistic one, thinking like, oh, it's not over. We got 13 more games, but like now it's like,
yeah,
it keeps counting down. 12 more games, 11 more games. You know, we can't keep, you know, expect it. Well, fortunately and unfortunately for us, our direct rival for the Scudetto continues to drop points, but we're not doing ourselves any favors. So it's just been this you know, this merry-go-round where we're literally just chasing something that we'll never catch, apparently, if we keep this up. So it's I'm just hopeful that things.
And that's what's frustrating. That's what's frustrating.
Anyway.
But I gotta tell you, Johnny, honest to God, like, again, I gotta tell you, Johnny, to be honest with you, like, yes, tonight sucked, and we're not happy about it. And it was like, especially the more the game went on, all of us knew this was coming, and it pisses us off, right? We get that. But I gotta say, next weekend becomes very key to me. You beat Genoa, which you should do, and if Napoli drop points, that's the main one. Okay, you would like to ideally be 2, 3, 4 points ahead going into that game, but next weekend becomes very key for me. If Napoli drop points against Como and Inter beat Genoa, then this thing is then it becomes interesting again. Because again, you're not chasing Conte. That's the key here. You don't want to be chasing Conte in February, March. You just don't want to. We've had him out there. We know how he is when he, you know. So yeah, that's the key. Is that good positivity for you?
I mean, finally, something good has come out of your mouth. It's amazing. But yeah, no, it is good to hear that at least. But yeah, I think we just gotta. It'll be interesting to see how this team responds. Right, I think we saw how we responded after the loss to Fiorentina, which was the worst loss of the season. Granted, they came out guns, but again, it wasn't a convincing win, and had it not been for an error by the referee, who knows what happens? You know, so will we come out and hopefully grab a 3-0 lead at halftime against Genoa? I don't know. It's possible. I mean, we've seen us do it. We've seen the capabilities, but will that be the way this team responds? That remains to be seen. So we'll certainly see what happens. You know.
Yeah, and also, Johnny, I mean, like, from a historic point of view, I know these things don't really mean anything as such, but they do kind of count for something at some level. And the fact that Inter have never won the Scudetto, if they haven't beaten Juve or Milan during the season along the way, that's never happened. Like, that's one of those stats that, like, okay, there's got to be a first for something. Do you know what I mean? But that's also kind of like, is this year the year? Okay, well, we all hope that it is, but I'm not so sure that it's realistic. But we'll see. We'll see. I mean, I think we'll know in a week's time. I think you beat Genoa and Napoli drop points, then this is a different ballgame. But you go into the Napoli game chasing Napoli, ugh. No thanks.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's not an ideal situation. Even though some Napoli fans I'm seeing on Twitter, which is cracking me up, they say, that it's our title to lose, not theirs. It's like, come on, you guys know the whole Conte with 1 game a week thing. Like, you cannot possibly say that it's on us. If they don't, honestly, I know we're Inter and we have more quality, but if they don't win this, I think that's a huge ball drop, because that, I mean, not to pick on Napoli, but I think that if they don't win and then they have more competitions next season, we know how Conte is in those scenarios, and now it's not easy for him to be able to focus on multiple fronts. And I think it becomes even more difficult for them to win a Scudetto if they don't do it this season. So, I mean, really, right now we're the sheriffs chasing the bandits, but we'll see if we're able to catch them. Which I do still believe that we're able to do.
Oh, it's not impossible by any stretch of the imagination. The question is whether it's likely or not. Well, that's a different one, and I'm not entirely convinced, to put it mildly. But again, let's see what happens next week. I still think that you still have a chance to. It's not in your hands, kind of in that aspect, because you can still go into the Napoli game equal with Napoli, and I think that's the key. I think that's absolutely key. I don't want to chase him at all in February, March, because he's yeah.
No, I agree. Well, we're coming up on 52 minutes. Nima, any last points you wanna share with the listeners? Anything new coming up, for any big things coming up with the Italian football podcast that we should get excited about?
I'm not ready to announce it yet, but I'm kind of in talks to do a pretty cool interview. But we'll have to wait and see. I'm waiting.
Okay.
We'll have to wait and see. But I'm waiting on the guy's booking agent to get back to me. But yeah, we'll see.
Awesome.
But yeah, absolutely. The Italian Football Podcast is where we do everything nowadays in terms of audio and like podcasts. It's Monday Pod, where we'll be talking about this game from both angles. We're talking about all the weekend, and then a Q&A pod, which is for patrons, where people send in their questions. And on Thursday we do the Champions League midweek review kind of thing.
No, I mean, if you're not a listener of the Italian Football Podcast, I don't know what you're doing, because it is amazing quality stuff, and they have awesome guests on there. And the Q&A pod is probably one of my favorites. You could send in questions and they always answer them. So if you got the $2.99 to spare a month, which is literally less than a cup of coffee at your local coffee shop, Starbucks, whatever you want to call it, I mean, it's $2.99 a month, not $2.99 a day. So come on, guys, like give them a follow, check them out. And get to hear, just obviously about the rest of this league that we love and support. So that's pretty much all I've got. I'm trying to remain hopeful, trying to remain in high spirits, but this team really upset me today. I'm sure it did a lot of you guys who are listening to this. And
listening is pissed off today. I mean, come on. Like, is there anyone who wasn't pissed off? Like,
I had some banter going on with some Juventini who are also Canadian, and I was throwing it in their face that the USA destroyed Canada. Well, now they're throwing it back in my face. That Juve beat Inter. So it's like, dang, I can't. Honestly, I would have rather seen the US get smoked than Inter lose today. That's where I'm at.
I mean, that's not even a real tournament. It's like instead of the All-Star game, isn't it?
I mean, partially yes. But like, I don't know. Bragging rights is always a big thing between USA and Canada, especially in hockey, especially
Yeah.
since our World Junior team has won back-to-back World Junior championships. So it's like, we've kind of been sticking into them, and I wanted to keep it going. And I was a little annoyed with the booing of the national anthem because it's a hockey game. I understand if you don't
Yeah, I
like.
don't like that either.
I understand if you don't like Trump and you don't agree with his politics. Like that.
Yeah,
That's
but you
one
don't
thing.
boo the national, like, to
And
me that's like,
it's a Canadian royal whatever military guy who was singing it, which by the way, phenomenal job by that guy. I mean, probably one of the best, Star Spangled Banners I've ever heard, to be quite honest. But then
it was
it's
better than when Roseanne Barr sang it.
oh gosh, please don't bring that up ever again. Um, but yeah, it's
Who thought that
people.
would be a good idea? I want to meet the guy
I
who
don't
came
know.
up. I know who
I
should.
don't know.
Like, I want to meet the guy who came
Yeah.
up with that in like the pre-production. Guys, I got it. Who should sing the national anthem? Roseanne Barr.
And I feel like that had to be approved by multiple people, right? So it's like that. Who was in that room? I need to know as well. But rivalries, I get. If you want to boo the players when they're announcing their names, cool. I don't see the point of booing the national. Like, if you're trying to make some political statement, to me, like, I said this to one of my friends who was kind of like defending Canadians. And again, I'm not trying to make this a political episode, so I apologize if you hate listening to this right now. Booing the national anthem isn't going to change anything in Washington. Like, Donald Trump didn't watch that game and think, you know what, maybe I shouldn't do this. That's just not the effect. And all you did was rile up the American hockey team.
Yeah, that's why they. Yeah,
that's why they came out, guns blazing. They were throwing their bodies around. They were hitting anything that moved. Now I will say I know it's going to happen in the championship if it's USA Canada. In Boston, I'm sure the Americans are going to let them have it too. So it's just silly, in my opinion, no matter how you want to look at it, but to each their own.
I don't understand. Like, for me, it's like, it's not like, look, it's two countries that are neighbors. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't, like, it's like if Sweden plays Norway and they start booing, like, there's no long-standing political hostility between. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not.
Yeah.
I think context matters. I don't understand. I thought it was unnecessary. I remember when Italy lost to Sweden in the World Cup qualifiers and the San Siro crowd booed the Swedish national anthem, and Daniele De Rossi went to the Swedish players' bus and apologized on behalf of the crowd. I thought, it's unnecessary. You know what I mean?
Agreed.
It's unnecessary.
Agreed. But
regardless
anyway,
of political opinion.
Exactly. That's yeah. But it is what it is. Listen, Nima, thank you for joining on short notice.
Always a pleasure.
I reached out to him early this morning once I heard from Alessandro what was going on with him. And again, my thoughts and prayers are with him and his family, given the circumstances that they're dealing with. And thank you again for hopping on. And in the words of the great Roberto Scarpini,
always a pleasure.
Yep. Forza ragazzi, forza ragazzi, forza ragazzi.